Now, most of you probably know I'm not a big fan of Rand Paul. He gets it wrong about 95% of the time. But boy, when I tell you, when he gets it right, he gets it really, really right. I mean, he dropped some fire, and he dropped some last night. Now, before we get started on that, I want to go ahead and let everybody know that Tulsi is apparently now she's at about 15,000 donations, or a little bit less than 15,000 donations to go until she hits on that debate stage. She is so very, very close. And like she says, she is trying to get there by the end of the month. So all you have to do is donate $1. Donate $1 right now. Go click on that link in the description or in the comment section below, and help her get to that debate stage. Let's let her into the conversation, and let's help her push some of our people left. So Rand Paul took to Twitter yesterday, and he said something that, in my opinion, has always been what I've advocated for. And it may be an unpopular opinion. It may be unpopular in progressive circles, and some people may disagree with me, and that's fine. I don't mind that. But I'm big on accountability. I really am. And I'm big on the accountability of elites. And what Rand Paul had to say is in line with what I believe should be done in regard to the Russiagate conspiracy. So Rand Paul took to Twitter and said, "It's time to investigate the Obama officials who concocted and spread the Russian conspiracy hoax." Woo! Don't worry. Oh, man. Well, I'm not worried because I didn't concoct the Russian conspiracy hoax. I didn't do it, but Obama officials did do it. That's including James Comey. That's including Andrew McCabe. That's including Peter Strzok. That's including Lisa Page. That's including Rod Rosenstein. The litany of people who have been caught in some way, form, or fashion, either tangibly or tacitly propagating this fallacious conspiracy about something that was never the case. I mean, like I said, we learned in the book Shattered that Hillary Clinton insiders wrote that Hillary Clinton herself concocted the Russiagate conspiracy, and they had always planned to concoct the Russiagate conspiracy, at least as far as the collusion is concerned, 24 hours after she lost. That was always the plan. And the plan went off without a hitch. Well, except for the fact that luckily there are some independent journalists out there. There are some investigative journalists out there, and there are plenty of people, luckily, still left on this planet and in this country with some remnants and semblance of common sense. Thank God, because otherwise it could have gotten really ugly really fast. Not unlike what we've seen in the 40s, the 50s, 60s, and the 70s, and in part of the 80s with the McCarthyist smears. Now, don't get it twisted though. There's a reason I agree with Rand Paul. First, let's look at the fact that so many people lost their jobs. I was talking to a friend the other day. She said, "I've lost friends over this because I wouldn't buy in to the Russiagate conspiracy because they were involved in politics and they were activists before the election had taken place. So they knew what had taken place. They knew that it was a cover up for the DNC. They knew that it was a cover up for Hillary. And at the very bare minimum, we all knew that this was a ploy to make it look like we were ramping up for a war with Russia so that the weapons contractors could see their stocks rise. I don't think that anybody can really dispute that because once again, it acted and served as an excuse so that the Democrats never had to address how horrible Hillary Clinton campaigned. Like, it was bad. She was not good. She's not a good campaigner. Every race she's ever won, she had a huge lead going into it, and then she gets diminishing returns almost every single time she reruns for a lot. Like, that's why she didn't win the presidency against Obama. Once again, people, she lost to a guy named Barack Hussein Obama. That wasn't the Russians. The Russians didn't name him Barack Hussein Obama, nor did it make her lose to a guy named Barack Hussein Obama. Like, the idea that someone can lose to somebody with the last name Obama, like, was insane until Hillary Clinton made it mainstream. And the idea that anybody could lose to a freaking reality show game host was also inconceivable. And then Hillary Clinton made that mainstream. Look at Hillary Clinton out here setting the culture. Good job, Hillary. But people lost friends. People lost jobs. People were smeared. I'm not going to say no names, but Jimmy Dore was even smeared by some of his colleagues, which is sad. Because what did Jimmy do on his show? Jimmy Dore, all he ever asked was questions. I was smeared by many people. All I ever did was ask questions. Then I got tired of asking questions because the facts started coming out, and then I just started saying the facts. We have to start recognizing this for what it was. It isn't a matter of whether or not you like Trump. See, in the military, once again, you all know that I'm a vet. When you're enlisted, and I was enlisted, that officer, when they walk by, I have to salute them. I don't care if I don't like them. I don't care if I don't respect them. And there's a reason for that. An officer in the job that they hold at one point, some people can argue whether or not it's still the same, but to be an officer back in the day, I always think of the officer from the American Revolutionary War, Sir Lafayette. Lafayette was a 21-year-old general. I mean, this guy he was so talented. He was so gifted. And back then, you didn't get to be a general or an officer just by going to school for 4 years and joining JROTC. That's not what happened. You had to know your stuff. And you had to respect the knowledge and the strategic experience of that officer, no matter if you like them. So when you salute an officer, you're not saluting the person. You're saluting the office. You're saluting the badge, you're saluting the position, and you're respecting that position. So if you collude or if you have a conspiracy to take down an officer and UCMJ, they're not going to say you have a conspiracy to take down Niko House if I was an officer. No, they would say you conspired to disparage or to lie to an officer 03, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's the same thing. What we saw was nothing short of a conspiracy to collude, to oust the office of the President of the United States of America. Does anyone understand how serious that is? Seriously. Do you really fathom how this is something that we were taught doesn't happen in the United States? We grew up believing that democracy will always prevail and that our congresspeople, our senators, our representatives at the state level and at the federal level are here to benefit us and uphold the Constitution, uphold democracy, and represent our self-interest and our values and the values that this country is supposed to represent. And over the last 3 years, they have not done so. And it has all been for selfish reasons and personal agendas on behalf of both neoliberals and even some of the neoconservatives. So what Rand Paul is calling for, to investigate the concocted and spread Russia myth, why wouldn't we investigate it whenever the Office of the Inspector General found Andrew McCabe guilty of doing exactly what Rand Paul is saying should be investigated? And Andrew McCabe was fired for doing exactly what Ron Paul suggested should be investigated. Where is he wrong here? If anything, he should be credited with being the only senator brave enough to say what many people, many Americans on both the left and the right, all populists, have believed. I was on Fault Lines with Nixon and Stranahan yesterday. And if for those of you who don't know, it's a show. It's an awesome show on Sputnik Radio, where Garland is I think he's still registered as a Democrat, but he's ACLU. He's on the board of the ACLU, super progressive Democrat, Tulsi-crat, if you will, anti-war, as far progressive as you can get. And then they have Lee Stranahan, who is to the right, used to be a Trump supporter. It's about as conservative as you can get. I would say that Lee is more the actual conservative rather than a neocon. He will call out war. He talks about Venezuela and talks about that it's a setup. Like, in both of them were able to mutually reach the conclusion that Russiagate was a hoax very early on, and both of them agree with this sentiment. One's a Republican, one's a Democrat. If you go on Twitter, it's the same thing. If you ask Caitlin Johnstone, who is probably more of the independent, she's from Australia, but she's more of the independent side. Elizabeth Lee Voss, same thing. She's staunchly independent, not from the States. Obviously, myself, I'm progressive. I'm as progressive as it comes. But I am also, as a person who's worked in the law, worked in UCMJ specifically, which is the Uniform Code of Military Justice. If you saw little E3s, E4s, little soldiers, I don't want to say little, like I don't want to belittle anybody, but the way they looked at us when we were privates, when we're specialists, is like you're little, you're junior enlisted. If we had done something like this to conspire against a lieutenant, against a colonel even, there wouldn't have to be an investigation. We would be in jail. We would be court-martialed. Because don't forget, once again, the office of the President of the United States is not just, the president is a presiding officer, if you will. They're also the commander-in-chief. So you conspired against the highest general of the land. If you don't know, generals do have to salute the president. Yes. You conspired against the highest general of the land for political gain. Meanwhile, these same people who, once again, spread the hoax, former intelligence officers who went into the news and perpetuated it even further. I was in intelligence, you have to believe me. When has the intel community ever lied to the American people? We've never done such a thing, and any accusation that we have done such a thing basically means you're a communist. So I wouldn't say it if I was you. That's basically what we saw. We can't pretend like there was no reverberating damage that took place because of Russiagate. We can't do that. Because guess what? If we don't get accountability now, it is guaranteed to happen again. We don't have to guess. Look at our history. Who was held accountable for the McCarthyism that was sparked by the Duluth brothers that ultimately ended up in the exile of Mossadegh from Iran, that ultimately ended up in radical Islam being cultivated in the University of Nebraska in the Pakistan campus, that was used to be spread around the Middle East and give the United States and Great Britain a reason to exist in the Middle East to make sure that who couldn't go in. That's right, Russia. These McCarthyist smears have never been held accountable. So it is time. It is finally time to speak up. It is time to do something about it. It is time for these elites to stop getting away with sometimes literal murder. Do you understand? We just pulled out of a nuclear arms treaty, people, because of this. We allowed sanctions on a country where we know for a fact 100% of the time it is not the elites who are hurt by the sanctions. It is not the government that is hurt by sanctions. The government, the elite will eat regardless. It is the people. It is the people who will always be hurt by sanctions. And yet we keep doing it. No country agreed that Russia colluded with our government with Trump in any significant way. The findings showed that. It upheld what we have been saying. And it's cool. We laugh and we joke and we have a good time with it because unfortunately this stuff is so depressing. You have to laugh and you have to celebrate the good times and you have to be happy that we were correct, because if God knows if we were wrong, nobody wants to see a world where Trump was able to successfully collude with Russia to become a Manchurian candidate. Nobody wants to see that. Some people did, though. Some people can't accept Trump for what he is. He is an ugly reflection of this country. And Hillary was probably an uglier one. And that's why he won. Because people accept, well, we got two mirrors, and we're looking at the reflection from both of them, and both of them are ugly. But, I look a little bit prettier in this one. At least I got some eyeliner on in this one, so I'm going to check this one out. That's what happened. This is what our country looks like. Trump is not the minority, unfortunately. It's sad, but it's true. He's not the minority. Y'all like, we put out stories about Stormy Daniels. We put out stories about this guy. We put out stories about him laundering money, stealing money, lying about his assets, getting away with lying to bankers about loans, or lying to bankers about his assets in order to get loans and getting away with it. That's the American dream. I hate to break it to y'all. Yes, Trump is a reflection of who our country has become because of the standards and the lack of moral culpability that we have developed over the last couple of centuries. So we need to address the root of how a symptom like Trump can reveal the cancer that is running deep in our society. Russiagate was not the answer to that. Never was. And that's what we've been trying to tell you all. The reason people like myself, people like Jimmy and Max Blumenthal and Glenn Greenwald and Michael Tracy and Kyle Kalinske and all of us, the reason we get so frustrated, the reason we get so pissed about this is because we want to move on to solutions, people. We're tired of having to clarify the obvious. But the thing is, there are a lot of people in journalism who aren't activists. They don't have solutions. So whenever you're not an activist and you're not focused on solutions and you don't have any solutions, what's the only way that you can keep making money? You have to make somebody the bad guy. You have to create fear. And you have to cultivate a culture of fear. Because that's the only way you can keep driving in numbers. But with a lot of us, we care about numbers so much as it allows more people to see the truth. It allows more people to see viable solutions. And anybody who's watched this channel specifically, you all know I'm a solution-based thinker. When we come here, when we sit down around this little fire, this campfire that is the MCSC network, when we have our powwows, we talk about solutions. We talk about how to make sure Bernie doesn't get cheated again. We talk about how to make sure Tulsi hits that debate stage. We talk about we even talk about how to utilize the little bit of value that Elizabeth Warren offers to the race. We talk about how to actually understand polls and read them substantively so that you understand what they're actually saying, rather than saying Republicans are bad, Republicans are bad, Republicans are bad, Democrats are bad, Democrats are bad. We have nuanced discussion. And that's what we need to move forward. We can't blame things like Russiagate for all of our problems because there are consequences like we just talked about. Somebody's name. Think about how xenophobic our rhetoric has been about Russians. I just did the video yesterday where Cenk was like, the Russians, Trump took money from the Russians. And I mean, if he took money from the Russians, clearly they helped him. He's a Putin puppet because Russians gave him money. And I said, take that shit, take the word Russians, like the way that the people have been using it. Take any other marginalized or scrutinized label. Black, Muslim, Jewish, woman, indigenous, Native American. Just take Jewish, for example. They call it Ilhan Omar anti-Semite. Now, everything that they've said about Ilhan Omar being an anti-Semite is a complete and total lie. We know that. But think about how they've been talking about Russians. Trump took money from the Russians, therefore he is a Manchurian candidate for Putin. Replace that with Trump took money from the Jews, therefore he is a Manchurian candidate for the Jewish people, for Rothschild, for whoever. Took money from the Jews. But no, when you say Trump is an asset of AIPAC, you see how that's a specific organization? I didn't have to talk about their identity. I said that's a specific organization with a specific set of goals that are antithetical to the American, to American interests, like us, not the country. Or not the deep state, I should say. You hear the difference? If you would say Trump had an issue with this specific element of, like when we talk about Hillary's issues with Russia, because there are some, we say John Podesta had 50,000 shares in Juul, a Kremlin specifically backed energy company that took off as the Uranium One deal was passed. Did I have to say Russia one time? Did I have to say a Russian? Do we have names? Do we have an organization? And do we have facts to back up everything we just said? Absolutely. There is a way to go about investigative journalism, and there's a way to go about conducting these conversations, but Russiagate was not it. So thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of not this live, oh my God, whoo, Jesus. Thanks for tuning in to this segment of Mikasa Sukasa. Remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace. Thanks for watching that segment of Mikasa Sukasa. Don't forget to join us on Roku and catch our Roku exclusives. Also, help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and JustNForm.com. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.